Welcome, everyone, to Managing the Online Teaching Workload. This is one of the workshops we've been offering in a series about online teaching, in addition to a series of workshops we've held on online course design. My name is Stephanie Richter. I'm the Assistant Director of the Faculty Development and Instructional Design Center at Northern Illinois University. And I'm assisted by my colleague, Tracy Miller, our online teaching coordinator, who is around and available and hopefully will interject some of her own expertise as we go through today. I would like for you to take a moment, though, and in the text chat, if you haven't already, let us know who you are, what department you're with, and what your online teaching experience is like, either the number of courses you've taught or how many years you've taught online, or if you've been an online student instead of being an online teacher. I would love to hear from that too, since your student experience is very valuable as well. So go ahead, click the conversation bubble at the bottom if you haven't done so yet, so that you can post your introduction there on the chat panel. I'll move ahead, though, and we'll be able to refer back to your comments as we go. For today's workshop, we're really focusing on two areas of online course quality. If you've been to any of our workshops so far on online teaching or online course design, this should be familiar to you by now. In this overall pie, there are so many aspects that really make or break an online course. This is what determines whether or not the experience is a powerful one for your students. And typically, we've been dividing up course design from course delivery. But today, I'm actually going to talk a little bit about both, because there are ways that you can design the course to make it easier and less time-consuming to teach. And at the same time, I want to focus a great deal on what you can do while you are teaching a course in order to have the best experience possible. So the workshop objective for today is that by the end of today, you will have discovered practical strategies on how to keep up with an always-on online course. You'll be able to save time and increase your efficiency. It sounds a little bit like an infomercial, but I promise you these will be practical strategies that you'll be able to use in a course you're teaching now or that you'll be teaching soon. The three areas that we're going to look at in particular are course design, course delivery, and grading. Design and delivery are traditional categories. Grading often would actually be part of delivery, but I want to break grading out in particular because, for me at least, keeping up with grading of an online course seems to be the most challenging part, or at least it has been this semester. So we'll look specifically at design, then delivery, and then grading. So for course design, what I mean here is anything up to the start of the course. So course design includes all of the activities you go through when you're planning a course and when you're building it in Blackboard. Blackboard being the learning management system that we use here at NIU for anyone who's watching the archive. So this would include writing your course objectives. Course design includes selecting materials, and it includes building those materials into your Blackboard course. The first tip to save you time is, whenever possible, to use existing learning resources. So often when we teach online, there's an assumption that you have to create everything. And so you're building a course of materials and media that you've created. And that's definitely an important part of having an instructor presence in the course so that students know who you are and know that you are teaching them. But at the same time, you don't have to create everything in your course. So there are, of course, many resources out on the web that you can incorporate into an online course. And you can start just by doing a search in Google or your favorite search engine. But I want to draw your attention to a couple of additional resources, because these are generally considered high-quality resources. Most of them are peer-reviewed. So while you, of course, do an evaluation on your own, someone else has already seen and looked at all of these resources, and these are open educational resources. And by that, I mean that they're created for you specifically to use. So someone else, a faculty member at another university, created these, licensed them as OER, so that anyone in the world can adopt them as learning materials in their own courses. So the first one here in the center is Merlot. They're probably the largest and the most recognized resource. Merlot has online lessons, videos, entire course designs in some cases, textbooks, and a variety of other resources for you to use in an online course. OER Commons, again, has a similar set of resources. And then Cool for Ed is a little bit of a different resource. Cool for Ed is actually developed by the university system and the college systems in California, so that they have a repository of learning objects that they can use in any online course, or any course for that matter. So Cool for Ed has a set of objects specifically used in a lot of California universities, but it also has a great tool in order to find open textbooks. So if you're looking to either supplement the formally adopted textbook, or if you're looking to maybe replace that with a textbook that students could access online for free or for a couple of dollars, usually $5 to $10, instead of an expensive traditional textbook, Cool for Ed has a feature where you can search by the ISBN number of a book, and it will find related textbooks that are available either free or at low cost online. So the three, again, here that I'd recommend, although there are many other repositories of open resources that you can use, are Merlot, OER Commons, and Cool for Ed. The next recommendation I have for you is to be organized yourself as you're designing and planning your course. This is actually my method of organization, where I have one folder for the course overall, and then after that, I incorporate individual folders for each of the weeks of the course. So within that week, then, I have the announcement that I'll post. I save it as a Word document on my computer. Any of the readings that are assigned that week, and the assignment instructions that are due that week. For other aspects of the course that maybe branch several weeks, like a large project, I create a separate folder for that project. And staying organized this way lets me more easily upload and manage those files when I'm working with them in Blackboard. Or if I need to refer to them myself, I know which week we're in, so I can find the reading for that week. I'm not digging through lists of files to try to find the one that I want to use right now. So I recommend whatever you can do to be organized yourself, so that your students can benefit from that when you're actually loading these files into Blackboard. You also may use a variety of links or web-based resources in your course. In that case, those can be a little bit harder to organize since you don't save an entire website to your computer. But there are a variety of tools available that you can use in order to organize those links. Excuse me. So for example, Digo and Delicious here are both tools for organizing your bookmarks. So normally, if you save a website on your computer, it saves it to your computer. But Digo and Delicious save your bookmarks to the web, so that you can log in and access those bookmarks from any computer at any time. In fact, Digo itself has a lot of really good collaborative resources where you can save those but share your bookmarks directly with other Digo users. In both cases, and in fact, actually in all three cases here, Evernote, Digo, and Delicious, when you save your bookmarks, you don't have to go back and remember what was that website, because you can organize them with folders and with tags. And I love tags because they're a really small, granular description of what a particular resource might cover. So you can apply one tag, you can do several. I usually use at least two. One is for whatever the content is. So if I found a resource on, I'm teaching a course right now on evaluation, and students create logic models. So if I found a great resource on logic models, I give it one tag to say that this is for logic models, but I give a second tag as well to say that this is for ETR 531. So by including both of those tags, I can find this resource whether I'm looking for the topic or if I'm looking for all of the materials I've recommended for a particular course. So instead of just having a long list of links, I can be more organized and I can find them quicker when I'm trying to incorporate them into the next time I teach the course. Does anyone use any of these tools, by the way? You can raise your hand or put something into the text chat if you do, if you found any of these tools to be useful, or if you have a different tool that you use for organizing the materials you find on the web. Well, Autumn, now you have a great recommendation for some tools to consider using. Dean uses Delicious. I use Delicious more than Diigo, but my director, Jason Rohde, has used Diigo for years and absolutely loves it. Tracy, I'm growing my use of Evernote. I have not been as religious about it as I probably should be to get as much out of it as I can. But it's a great tool for taking notes in general, and saving links is just one way you can use it. Another, before I skip, Zotero is a great tool that Lori just mentioned. I've used Zotero too. It's designed for organizing bibliographies, essentially. So when you're citing articles, when you find articles online or offline for that matter, you can load those into Zotero with the citations, and if you have it, the link for it online or the PDF of the article itself. So when you're trying to go back and find what was that article I used on X, they're all nicely and neatly organized for you in Zotero. Plus you have all of the same abilities for tagging as well, so you can organize and structure your articles there. Highly recommend Zotero. So my next recommendation for actually organizing your course is when you're building your course, particularly when you're building it in Blackboard, finalize one module first before you start working on the others. And the reason for that is in one module, you can build out the structure that you want, and then you can replicate that in all of the other modules. But doing one in its entirety lets you actually work out the kinks, so to speak, find out what might end up being confusing for students, reorganize how you want the module laid out. And here, by the way, when I refer to module, this might as well be a week or a unit. I'm using module as a very generic term here. However you structure your course, do one first and then do the remaining ones. And depending on how your course is structured, you might not want to do week 1 first. You might want to start with 2 or with 3 if that's more representative of the entire course. And when you're doing that, when you're finalizing one module first, you can actually build out a template that you use for all of the modules in your course. So this is kind of what mine looks like approximately, where within one folder, and up here at the top, this unit X is the name of my folder in Blackboard. Then right after that, I record a video of myself introducing the unit. That comes next. Just below the welcome video, I write a short statement that is an overview for that unit. I'll list the module objectives for that unit, as well as indicate how those correspond to the overall course objectives. If there's a class session for an online course, sometimes my course has synchronous sessions during the week, meaning we're holding a web conferencing meeting of some sort. Or if there isn't, then we're doing something asynchronously online. I'll write a short description of that under class session. Then I have a folder for activities and assignments. And actually what's missing from here, from my template, is before the activities, there's actually a folder for readings as well. So I'm not sure how that disappeared, but maybe I cut it out in order to fit this on the screen. But a folder of the readings for the week, a folder of the activities, the assignments for the week, and then at the bottom, tips for success. By building out this template, I can create one folder. I can keep it hidden so it's only available to me, not available to students. And then I can copy the entire folder in Blackboard so that I get all of these placeholders for each unit. When I do that, then I just have to come in and edit each of these in order to change the content that goes into that section. Instead of remembering which sections go where, I can create the template, create the folder with all of these placeholders, and then just copy that again and again. It makes building the course much easier. And because I have a consistent layout for the course, it's much easier for my students to navigate the course. Once they've gone through weeks like 1 and 2, they know that the activities for the week are in this activities and assignments area. They don't have to email me in order to ask where something is for the week. And that decreases the amount of time that I spend answering student email as well. So this one's a twofer. It actually helps you design the course and build the course quicker, and it saves you time later because students don't email you with as many questions. The next suggestion for trying to organize and design your course in a way that is easy for students to follow is to provide really specific instructions for them. This might be specific instructions on what to do for the week. I've seen some courses that really effectively use checklists, where every week you have a checklist of activities to accomplish. Or it might be as granular as providing specific instructions for a particular task. So in this case, this is one assignment that you need to complete in my evaluation course. And here I've given them some specific instructions, just right in Blackboard in the description. In fact, I've even given them specific parts of the readings to refer to as they create each of these components. I also gave them an evaluation design instructions document. So this is a Word document. Actually, I converted it to a PDF and then attached it here to this assignment. That PDF gives really very detailed instructions for every step they should take in completing this assignment. I also gave them a sample that I created of just this one component. So as they're doing this evaluation design activity, they have general instructions here, including specific chapters to look at. They have detailed instructions in the form of a downloadable PDF. They can actually download and print that out. So if they want to refer to that while they work on their computer, they can do so. And then I also gave them an example that they can follow as they work on their own project to compare it to the sample project that I've identified. I also very clearly here indicated when this assignment is due so that students can see that here and not wonder about when this part of the assignment was due. This isn't the only way to provide instructions, of course, but the overarching suggestion of providing specific instructions is the one that I want you to take away. Before I move on to course delivery, does anyone else have any other recommendations for course design and how you can save time as you design your course? Go ahead and, if you'd like to use your microphone, raise your hand or type them into the text chat. I'll give just a moment if anyone's typing something. I know it can take a little time. Well, if you are typing, keep your suggestions coming in. Oh, here we go. Tracy just found one. Oh, another great repository of content that you can use now. Lynda.com, thank you, Tracy, for bringing that up, is another great resource in order to find existing learning materials to use in your course. So NIU just recently purchased a site license to use lynda.com for any faculty, staff, or student here at NIU. So as a faculty member, you can go to lynda.com. Tracy gave the URL there, go.niu.edu/lynda, and look at the full list of videos and tutorials that they have available. Lynda has videos on everything from basic, as she said, basic instruction on using PowerPoint, to some really detailed videos on things like web design, programming language, Photoshop, doing video editing, as well as videos on more soft skills like sales techniques and leadership. You can build a playlist of videos that students can watch, or you can embed the videos directly in your course. And we're working on testing out a Blackboard tool that you can create a list of assigned videos within Blackboard so that students can automatically go to lynda.com to take them. And that also will then in Blackboard give you some options to actually review the videos and see whether or not students have completed them. Ying asks if you can give more than 5 courses in lynda.com for students to take. So the version that we have is a little bit different now than I think what you may have used in the past, in that in lynda.com, you don't have a class list of students. So when you create a playlist of videos there, you can recommend as many courses as you would like, whether you recommend the entire course or individual videos. The Blackboard building block, we're still testing how that works, so I don't have any answers on if you're building a required list of courses in Blackboard. I'm not entirely sure how that works out, but I know we have a workshop coming up in December, and Dan Cabrera, along with our graduate assistant Lucia, will be providing more insight then on how to use lynda.com for your courses, and most likely how to use the Blackboard building block. So Ying, in general, yes, you could have students take as many courses. The tracking in Blackboard, we'll have to await future details on that. So I'm not entirely certain how that works. But it means you don't have to create videos for students or write steps for students on how to edit a photo in Photoshop. You can assign them videos that they can watch. They're already created and are very high quality. So thank you, Tracy, for mentioning it, and thank you, Ying, for your question. So moving now to looking at course delivery. Course delivery is everything that happens once the course begins. And so a few of the things I'll talk about are going to be more about how you design the course so that it's easier to teach. But here, these are going to be very specific to time savings while you are delivering and teaching the course. So for example, the first tip that I have for you is to help your students get started. At the beginning of the semester, particularly for an online course, and absolutely for students who are new to online courses, it might be a little overwhelming for students to determine what to do and how to go about beginning the course. So here, for my online course, I created a welcome page. Instead of using the home page that is the default landing page in Blackboard, I created a new page where I wrote all of this out in an item. And here I have a list of the specific steps that students should take to get started during the first week. Some of them are small things like review the syllabus, there's actually a page about me as well as a video to get to know me. I have a text messaging service I use, remind.com. So if they're interested, optionally, they can sign up to receive text messages. Setting up a Blackboard profile. These are just sort of general things to do as you get started in a new course. But then I provided specific instructions to go to units and find the unit 1, to post to the discussion board to introduce themselves, and post to the discussion 1 in order to answer the first set of questions. So here, this is a little bit of general advice on getting started for the new semester, but also the specific steps that students should take in order to be ready to go with my course this semester. This just a simple list like this, whether it's posted to the front page or sent out via an announcement so that students know how to get started, will decrease their anxiety and decrease the amount of email you receive. So while it will take more time for you to set up than if you just didn't do it, it will save you time by having clearer communication with your students. This actually happens to be a tip I have not followed, but I know others have had a lot of success with, and that is using a syllabus quiz. So in essence, this would be a quiz about the material that's on the syllabus. General course policies or your standards and expectations. So this should be an easy quiz for students. For an online course, I would absolutely make this open book, in that I would recommend that they have the syllabus open so they can find the answers. I'm less concerned about them memorizing the syllabus and more about knowing that they've actually gone and looked at the syllabus and read the policies. So this is a test built with the test tool in Blackboard. Just a couple, here I have 3 questions. You would probably have a few more than this, but some specific questions on your course and your policy. I don't know if anyone here has used a syllabus quiz, but if you had, please let us know how it works and if it's worked for you well. You can do this in a face-to-face course as well, either by distributing a quiz for students to take in class, or by having them take a syllabus quiz in Blackboard. And actually, I think this gets bonus points as a great activity to manage your workload if you have students take tests online at any time during your course. Because having them take the syllabus quiz gets them essentially a practice quiz. It's an opportunity for them to try out using the test tool to make sure they know how to answer questions and submit their answers. But in a way that's maybe lower stress than when they have to do their first big test. It sounds like a few of you, Lori and Autumn, have both used syllabus quizzes. That's great. So like I said, a great way to decrease the amount of email that you receive when students want to know what your late work policy is, because they've had to look it up already. But at the same time, it also gives students an opportunity to practice taking a test so that if they need to do so later, they'll already have some practice in. Another great suggestion for a very small thing, but will make it easier for you to navigate your Blackboard course and save you time, as well as your students, is to put your folders in reverse order. So if you have units or weekly folders, put the most recent one at the top. So here I have units 6 at the bottom, then 7, then 8. And the reason why this saves time is because if you put them with 1 at the top and 8 at the bottom, every time you come in as the semester goes on, you have to scroll farther down the list to find the right folder. Whereas just dragging that one up to the top means that when you come back in, it's right there ready to go. It's a very small thing. We recommend it more often so that students can find the folder quite easily because it's always the one at the top. But for you, it's just a useful way to decrease the amount of scrolling that you have to do. And it's a little thing, but it can be really frustrating to have to continually scroll to try to find the folder you're looking for. If you haven't already tried it, we highly recommend the calendar in Blackboard. Anytime you set up an online assignment or assessment, like an assignment or a safe assignment, a test or quiz, or even a graded discussion board or a graded blog or journal, you have the option to enter a due date. And that due date is going to drive a lot of different tools in Blackboard. That due date essentially should correspond to your syllabus for the date and time that you expect students to submit that work. And one of the first things that Blackboard does with that due date is posts it here onto the course calendar. I only have one course visible right now. You can see I used a consistent time for all of my assignments. They were always due Sundays at 11:59 p.m. That in itself is a great tip. By using consistent due dates, my students always knew when something was due. They didn't have to email me to ask, was this due Tuesday or Friday? Nope, they're all due Sunday. Everything is due on a Sunday. When you have the due dates here, then you can actually click to drag and drop and move these if you do need to reschedule. So if you clicked on one item and drug it down, it would reschedule it here. It would change the due date on the assignment, and it would update the due date for the notifications that students receive. So students can sign up to receive or can see on the homepage notifications for what is due soon if you have used these due dates. Students can even subscribe to receive emails when due date for anything that's due in the next 2 days or the next week. There are a couple of different options that they can sign up for. But giving them access to these due dates on the calendar helps students find their answer themselves for what is due and when is something due instead of emailing you. In addition to these automatic due dates, there is a plus sign here in the upper right corner of the calendar, and you can use that, or you can just click on any date on the calendar in order to add another event. So if you didn't have something tied to a due date, but that you wanted to have on the calendar, such as a class session maybe, or an event that they needed to attend, you can click and add those to the calendar in addition to your due dates so that students can see what is coming up, again, all in one view, which helps them understand what's due and decreases the amount of times they ask you when something is or when something is due. Laying the dates out on the calendar also helps you establish a routine. And when you're teaching a course, it actually, I think, is very worthwhile for you to think about this as you set up the due dates for your course so that you can establish a routine for yourself. Think about when you set a due date, think about when you are going to be able to go back in to grade that. Think about when you are going to post new material. Think about when you're going to send announcements. So this was kind of what it looked like for my course. Every Monday, I had new material posted. So the folders opened on Monday and I wrote an announcement. This was also when I recorded a video of myself describing what the next unit was about. So Monday, I knew I was posting those announcements. Tuesday and Wednesday, I dedicated my time to grading whatever was due on Sunday. Sometimes this was easier than others, just based on what was due, but I myself established the routine that Tuesdays and Wednesdays I graded. I also established the routine for myself that Friday I sent a reminder announcement and usually sent out a text via Remind just to remind, I guess, students that there was a due date that next Sunday. So even though it was consistently, I had something due for them, I would send them the reminder on Friday so that they would know it was due Sunday. And when I established this routine, I thought about it deliberately as I designed the course. And then after trying it once, I could repeat that. And just like with students, after I myself repeated this routine a few times, then it became automatic for me too. So I always knew what I was doing and when I was doing it because I had that routine established. I think this is something that's easy for us when we're teaching face-to-face because if the class meets on Tuesday, then maybe you're spending Monday night preparing your for your class session on Tuesday. And then because you've collected papers on Tuesday, You know you're going to grade those Wednesday through Friday to have them ready to return the next Tuesday. So because you're meeting at specific times for a face-to-face course, that sort of forces you into a routine. With an online course, because it's always on and always running, it's a little bit harder to establish that routine unless you have synchronous class sessions where you have that same kind of routine that you do face-to-face. So for an online course, make sure you've thought about this as you plan out your course. When should due dates be based on when you're going to grade? When should new materials become open based on when you're going to post announcements and make sure that the files are ready? Your routine is going to be really important, and designing for that as you design the course will help you establish the routine that will help you keep up with the course that's always on. We also recommend a Q&A forum in your course. It's another one of those small changes that make a big difference. Instead of getting email at all hours of night for questions that, in all honesty, many students in the course will have, if you can get students to post those to a question and answer forum on the discussion board, then a couple of things happen. One is hopefully you can establish a routine for students where they always go and check that forum before they just email you. That way, if you've gotten the question already and you've answered the question already, then they'll be able to see your answer on the discussion board. Alternatively, in some cases, you can actually get students to answer each other's question. So you don't even have to be the one to answer. You can let someone else answer it and then just check that that answer was correct. But for managing your time, I also highly recommend that you subscribe to this forum. So when you create a new forum in Blackboard, you have the option to enable subscriptions. If you click that option, then you'll be able to come in and click this subscribe button, which normally says subscribe, and you will then receive an email every time someone posts to this forum. The reason why I recommend that is because it's really easy to forget that you need to check the forum to see if there are new posts, or you can end up stuck in a cycle where you're just constantly checking for new posts. And if you're logging in multiple times a day to go look at the forum and see if there's a post, that's more time that you're spending on something that could be automated for you. Since you're likely, like me, get your emails and have your email open quite often, or get your email on your phone so it pops up at any time, it's easier for you to get that notification that there's a new post and then go see the post instead of constantly logging in to check for new posts. The same thing, honestly, is true about assignments, for example. If students are posting work to an assignment, don't spend time logging in frequently to check to see if anything new is posted. Establish that routine that we discussed that says if it's due on Sunday, you will go in and grade on Monday, or you'll go in and grade on Tuesday. Instead of logging in frequently to always check for something new, set for yourself a routine for when you will log in to check for something new. The flip side of that, we'll talk about when we get to grading. My last delivery suggestion is to take advantage of the retention center. I don't know if you've used it before. It's a standard feature in Blackboard. What the retention center does is it automatically tracks each student based on 4 different criteria. It'll check to see if they've missed a deadline. This assumes that you've set up due dates for the course. It will check to see if their grade has dropped well below the class average. It will track their activity in Blackboard and let you know if their activity is above or below the average of all the students in the class. And by activity, I mean actual time spent in Blackboard, the amount of clicks they've made in Blackboard, opening files, reading discussion boards, etc. That's all counted in activity. And it will track whether or not they've accessed Blackboard. And usually the alert is triggered if they have not logged in within 5 days. You can customize these to a certain extent, but what the retention center will do when you access it is show you a grid of all of the students in your course and which, if any, of these risk factors the student has triggered. So for example, Leonardo da Vinci here has missed a deadline, has actually missed 11 deadlines, so he's in serious trouble. But as soon as the student misses a deadline, you can reach out to them if you have a late work policy in order to draw them back in. That will help the student catch back up and will help them be more successful instead of creating a bigger problem later in the semester. The grade alert is an easy way for you to see who has maybe fallen behind a bit based on grade. So here, the grade alert average is usually set to trigger for a student who is 20 to 25% below the class average. So if your class average right now, if all of the grades is about an 80%, this would trigger for someone who's at a 60% or lower. What this does, again, is it helps you identify quickly which students might need more intervention, might need more assistance. Again, the activity alert will let you know if students aren't logging in and being active in the course. There are other reports if you really want to dig into what has a student clicked or not clicked. Although that's not a great way to be efficient, it's a great way to lose a lot of time digging into unnecessary detail. The retention center, though, will let you know if maybe one student in particular has not been engaging with the course as much as they should have. Although that usually also translates into a grade alert and potentially a deadline alert. So they're definitely interrelated. And then the access alert, as I said, will just tell you if a student has or has not logged into the course recently. And again, this in an online course, this is particularly useful since students who fall behind in an online course tend to cause more work for themselves and particularly for you as you help them catch back up if necessary, or just simply more email to exchange as you explain to them why your late work policy says they can't catch up. From the retention center, then, you can actually notify the student via email. This lets you either send a generic email, such as the one that's on the screen, your activity and performance levels have triggered an alert, please contact your instructor, or it lets you fully customize that. So you can send whatever email message you want. But what I love is it gets kept here in Blackboard. So when you send a notification to a student because they've fallen behind or you have a concern, if you send it with the retention center, that history is saved in the course and makes it easier for you to then find that email later. So in particular, if you have a student who really has fallen behind, you've notified them several times, and now has sought intervention from someone else at the university, you can pull up that history, that record, very easily of, well, yes, the student has fallen behind. I emailed them on September 1st, September 14th, September 16th, and never received a response. That notification history here helps you be more deliberate and therefore more efficient in how you communicate with those students who are struggling. Tracy, I know you're a big proponent of the retention center. I don't know if you have anything else to add?
No, the only other thing I would add is that the retention center also follows the faculty members' activity in there. So it can give you some little clues, like if you're behind on your grading. So nobody else is looking at it, but it can give you some indication of your activity level within the course.
Great point. Thank you. So then the last area we're going to look at is grading, and specifically at how you can be more efficient in your grading when you're grading online. And honestly, I think a lot of these will translate over to your face-to-face courses. So the first suggestion is, as you're planning your course, plan how you're going to pace your grading as well. Because as much as you plan the course so that students have time to really engage with the content and complete their assignments, you also need to consider how you plan it for your grading pace. And putting too many large tasks next to each other is going to make it hard for you to keep up, is going to cause you to fall behind, and then make it harder for you to catch up. It'll feel like there's a higher level of, higher quantity of work that you need to do at that point. So here in mine, as I said, I chose Sundays for assignments to be due, because that gave me Monday to sort of look them over briefly while I set up the next unit. And then I was also able to grade them by Tuesday and Wednesday. That was kind of my workflow. Here I alternated easy and hard grading tasks. So for example, on the fourth discussion 3, I primarily just needed to check to see that students had responded correctly. I wasn't digging really deep into giving them corrective feedback. And I did that some anyhow as I engaged with the students on the discussion board during the week. Whereas phase 3 there on the 11th requires me to give far more specific feedback. I wanted to give more constructive feedback to help students revise that, because phase 4 that's due on the 25th was going to rely on what they had done in phase 3. So because my course built on itself as they went through it, I wanted to make sure that I alternated some easy and some hard grading for me, and then also left some gaps. So here there was 2 weeks where once I graded phase 3, I could relax a little bit until I had to grade phase 4. So your course design is not only about content and about pacing student work, but remember that it's about pacing your work as well. In some cases, as you're pacing your grading, you may be able to, if you're to log in earlier and grade students earlier. If your Sundays are often empty, if you're looking for things to do, you might be able to log in earlier on Sunday or even Saturday to see which students had posted and submitted their work early and grade them early. So when you get to grading everyone, you're not grading all of the students, you're grading only those who had not submitted early. So it's another small tip for how you pace your grading. And then my favorite suggestion for grading is to use Blackboard's interactive rubrics. Rubrics in general will make your grading quicker. There's no question about that. They can be time consuming to create, but then once you're actually grading your students, you have basically a checklist of what you're looking for. And it helps you by prioritizing where you give feedback. Because just simply selecting one level, like here, this exceeds expectations, already gives students some quick feedback on what you're looking for and on what they did. Then if you have specific feedback to give, you can write something small in the feedback for this particular rubric section. Or you can give feedback on the submission overall. My favorite way of using rubrics, though, is if you click this small icon in Blackboard, when you have a rubric set up for grading, you get this small icon, and you can pop open a grid view of the rubric. So from here, I usually just click the button here at the top, that expert, that will select the entire column for the student. And then if I needed to change that, so if I selected expert, but their stakeholder questions was maybe a little bit lower, then I would just click this one to move that selection over. But this will automatically tally a score for students, and it will display the rubric to students if you deploy it that way. You have some options. But by deploying the rubric so that students can see it, you'll get fewer questions on why did I get the grade that I got, which again decreases the amount of communication, decreases the amount of debate that you need to do with students, and increases your time for other tasks. So rubrics do so many great things for you just by setting expectations, helping students understand what they need to accomplish. But then the Blackboard ones specifically really speed up the time for you to grade and the amount of feedback that students get based on what you've selected for them in the rubric. If you have Ying, on the rubrics, unfortunately, you can't just import a Word or an Excel rubric. You do need to build the rubric in Blackboard, but if you have it as an Excel or Word document, you can copy and paste all of the pieces into the Blackboard template. So you can set up your rubric with several different levels, several different rows. And if you have a rubric established, it'll probably take you 5 or 10 minutes to build it in Blackboard. It's not going to be a very long process. But unfortunately, it doesn't have an import feature where it'll just like suck it all up in and create a rubric. But we'd be happy to help you with it too if you'd like. Yes, Ying, once it's set up, it is possible to, with the course copy feature, you can copy the rubrics from one course to another. So absolutely, you can use it in as many classes as you want, and then once you've copied it, you can refine it once it's in the new course as well. So online courses rely usually really heavily on discussion forums because you need to have students interacting with one another and be able to sense if they're really understanding the content. When you have a discussion forum for an online course, if you're grading it, traditionally, that means going into each discussion forum, trying to determine if students made substantive posts, if they made the right number of posts, and that in and of itself can be really time consuming. But if you enable grading for the entire discussion forum, then you get access to this lovely grading interface where I can see, this is all for a single student, by the way, so this is one student and all of his posts. I can read them here, or at least skim them to see if he met all of the criteria. And then to the right, I can enter a grade, or because I have a discussion rubric, I can open the rubric by clicking that button to the right to pop it open, select all of the levels that he achieved, type in feedback here and submit it, and grade the discussion assignment for each student in about a minute. So they become really quick, really easy to grade, whereas without using the grading feature, they're really laborious to grade. The one downside is if you have students discuss in individual groups using the group feature, and you have them discuss on their group forum, when you enable grading, you end up with separate columns for each group in the Grade Center, which quickly multiplies the number of columns you have, but it's not a technical problem. It's more just a slight inconvenience. So do keep that in mind. But for grading overall discussion forums, it makes it really, really simple. When you're grading longer written works, like a paper or a project, the Blackboard assignment tool will turn that into an embedded PDF where you can use annotation tools in order to leave comments. So if you click comments, then you can add comments like this in the margin. You can highlight and draw on this. It makes it really easy for you to provide detailed feedback when that's appropriate. But at the same time, I want to encourage you to be thrifty with your comments using this tool, because it's really easy to go overboard and actually go from grading into editing. So make sure you're providing comments that are appropriate, that you comment on something once, and if it's repeated later, maybe just leave a ditto or a shortened version of the comment. And make sure you're commenting at a time when it is helpful and useful to students. So if it's a final project and students aren't going to be revising it in any way, you might provide comments overall on their performance instead of these individual line item comments. However, like in my case, where each phase of their project builds on each other, it's helpful to provide comments on phase 1 so that they use them in phase 2. If you haven't heard this before, another great suggestion is to save feedback phrases that you'll use quite often. So you can copy and paste these directly into your feedback. I save these just as a Word document and bring those into my grading whenever I need to. So in summary, since we're out of time, I want to point out that online courses, when you're teaching them, can really become this time drain where just everything you have goes into teaching the online course. But don't let that be you. Put a stop to it. Stick a plug in that drain so that you spend time on ways that are productive and helpful for you and for your students. We've gone through a lot of different suggestions on how to design and build your course to be efficient, on how to manage your time while you are teaching the course, and on how to be efficient with your time when you're grading the course. The only other thing I want to highlight is a number of really helpful resources that are available here on the slide, or I'm going to post them quickly here into the text chat so you can get the links. These resources are the ones that I used for informing all of the suggestions that I made throughout the workshop. So there's the first one on efficient workload management strategies was actually developed by, it was a research project to determine through sort of a quasi-Delphi study from faculty who are experienced online educators. The time management strategies is from UW-Wisconsin Stout. These are the tips they give to their online instructors. And the last two are articles from an online resource called Faculty Focus, where they write quite often on how to be efficient and effective with your time when you're teaching. If you have any questions following today's workshop, I encourage you to reach out to me or to Tracy Miller. And then I've left at the bottom here the social media networks that we use for promoting online teaching here at NIU. On Twitter or on Facebook, we are NIU OPDS to represent the online program development and support. And we post a lot of resources in both cases on how to improve online teaching, how to design online courses, and how to manage your own time and workload while you're teaching online. So if you are on either network, I encourage you to follow us or like us so that you can receive more tips and tricks as we post them. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're